Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Deepest Law. I'm here. It's 3 a.m. at the time of recording, and I'm joined by Mr. D. How you doing, Mr. D?
Hello, fellow creature of the night. I'm doing well.
And Panama Hat is here as well.
Hello, everybody. Yes, it's a weird old time to be recording streams, but here we are.
I'm here all cutched up, as it were, with on a little got these Danish butter cookies, which I quite like. And,
You've gone a bit muffly, AA.
yeah, can you hear me still?
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, sorry, I've got these Danish butter cookies that I'm just finishing off here. And well, when this airs, it will be Christmas Eve, and you should be watching it around 3 p.m. So hopefully, you'll be doing something suitably cozy. And today we're going to be looking at old footage of London, which that I've been wanting to do for a while. And we'll be kind of talking over it and commenting on it. So, are you guys ready? Shall we begin?
Yeah, I would say your audio is still sort of going in and out of being quite muffly. I don't know if you're cutched in a bit too much, and your
Perhaps,
blanket is over your microphone.
You got a shawl in between you and the mic.
How does it sound now?
That's better.
Yeah, very clear now.
Okay, yeah. I think it was rocking up against my jumper. That's probably what was happening.
A good Christmas jumper then.
I walked down the modern equivalent of this street just earlier this year, actually.
Can you hear
hang
that?
on. So I'm gonna. I did hear that. I'm gonna have to sort of synchronize with you because of my shite internet connection. So you'll just sort of have to tell me when you start.
Okay, so let's count to 3, D, right? And what we'll do is, rather than pausing like we often do, we'll just talk, because I don't think there's going to be much audio
Right.
on these. So I'll start again.
And so this is remarkable color footage of London in the 1920s. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So a lot of these have been remastered, and in some cases recolored. Although you'd probably know more about the process. Do they paint the film? I mean,
so the way that it depends upon who's doing it and when it was done. So now there are quite sophisticated ways of introducing color into old film, and there are sort of neural network kind of algorithms that can sort of interpolate color from the tones of the black and white footage. They also do very often with these old films. They do again kind of AI stabilization and also they normalize the frame rate, because of course the kind of frame rate in some of these films it's quite variable, especially in this would have been a mechanical camera, but before this era, they would have hand cranked cameras, which would have, the frame rate would vary, of course, because it's someone manually turning a crank. And so there's a whole slew of these now where they've basically kind of normalized and made them have a consistent frame rate. So you can suddenly sort of see all these films where, whereas everyone used to sort of run around in that kind of characteristic jerky, high speed fashion of old films. I mean, now you sort of see them moving very fluidly, and it's all a bit uncanny actually to see these old films like this. But yes, now this is done just digitally with, again, like I said, these sort of algorithms and neural networks and AI and such, and it's quite good in most cases. So that's probably how these were done.
So, are you ready, D? Well, I'm going to count to 3, and on. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and then on 3 we press it together. Okay.
Right.
1, 2, and.
There we go.
So what are we seeing here? So this is a
It's a street leading onto Tower Bridge, isn't it?
yes.
Yes. I'm immediately trying to figure out our Father Thames. Oh, love it.
God, look, there's complete lack of skyscrapers. It's quite wonderful.
I know.
No glassy structures. God, I can't believe that the Tower of London looks so imposing without being surrounded by pillars.
Yeah.
It is a little bit odd to see footage from this era colorized in this way.
Palm Beach is a bungalow. I love these intertitles. They're very good. Oh, there we see the
Beefeater are off duty.
having mutton. So, of course, one thing that I think will become apparent in these films is certainly the kind of griminess of a London that was heated mostly by coal at this time. And quite famously, that continued even into my life a bit. When I was a child, there was still the kind of fog occasionally that would happen.
Where is this here? Is this Greenwich?
I think this is the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, yeah.
Yeah, the sort of maritime complex as well, I think. God almighty, look at that.
What are these must be very early buses here.
Yes. I'm fairly certain that motor-powered buses like that were only about 20 years old, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yes. Now that's a scene that's gone. That's long gone.
Notice the lack of markings on the road.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? The hand. What's that all about?
It's gone a bit arty now.
Yes.
Oh, policeman's hand.
Traffic direction. Back when policemen looked like policemen.
Yes.
So to speak.
And of course, this would also be this was before zebra crossings and Belisha beacons and I mean you see there's basically nothing on the road. People are just kind of crossing where they cross.
So of course this would have been after World War One.
Yes.
Yep. Oh, and this would have been the Cenotaph when it was quite new. And of course, again, this is a world where the idea of someone leaping up and trying to set the flag alight and spray painting slogans on it would have been just unthinkable, unheard of.
Couldn't happen.
No. If anyone attempted to do that, they would have been torn apart, I suspect.
Notice the lack of litter in the street.
I mean, despite what Dee just said, it's pretty clean looking, to be honest.
And slow paced. It's not this horrible rush that you sort of get nowadays.
Well, the thing about no litter is a quite interesting, sort of observation, because this was an age before there was much kind of disposable material that you encountered all the time. I mean, there would be newspapers and things like that, but they weren't really paper cups. They weren't kind of packaging in the way that we think about it. People weren't walking around eating in the streets.
No.
So there wasn't much to kind of throw away.
Seems so empty compared to London today.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, it's slow, it's empty, it's clean. Doesn't seem to be that much going on for London.
No, although I believe this was still the largest city in the world at the time. And maybe, or at least you're looking at the top three at least in terms of the sheer number of people.
But
Shows you how much times change.
It's peaceful, isn't it?
Very peaceful.
And it's very civilized. How much, though, do you think that what we're seeing here is a sanitization? Was there grimier stuff happening in other streets, do we think?
Sorry, Mr. D, go.
Well, so obviously they're going to.
Right, here we go.
There we go. I was going to say they were going to all the kind of, but still, look at everyone. I mean, these would be, working class, people, lower, even sort of lower rung of the economic strata. And I love those rabbits. What are those? I want one of those. But again, look how, these people are still, very well dressed and
clean, well turned out.
Clean. Everyone's wearing a hat,
Yeah.
Oh.
Now that structure in the back there is something that I'm surprised was there in the 1920s. I'd have thought that would have been a later structure, but
gas.
The gas works. The gas works. Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this peanut.
You still have these all over London.
That's something that I associate with America. The roasted peanut. The peanut cellar.
Really?
Well, I associate it with like baseball games and things like that, but kind of cool to see it there.
Yeah.
Got a kind of ASMR quality. This whole footage.
AA, do you recall a section in Orwell where he talks about how the guardsmen after the First World War were much more skinny and kind of unhealthy looking because you still had to be 6 foot to be in the guards, but all the kind of naturally built six footers were killed in the war, so the guards all looked sort of gangly and unhealthy.
That's very interesting. No, I don't recall which. Where was that? It's just an essay.
I can't for the life of me remember. I'll have to look for it.
I suppose they do look quite gaunt, don't they? These chaps here. Rotten Row.
And so there, yes, is a sort of the kind of dirt, the dirt street, which would have been very common in depending upon where you were. I mean, the paving would be only in certain places at this time. I would suspect.
Oh, and that was it. Well, that was very cool, wasn't it? Very chilled out, and I enjoyed that. So I'm gonna go to the next one now. So I've got I found color footage from 1933 now. So let's have a little look at London in this time.
And remind me. Okay, I see. 1933. Yes.
Yeah. So this has been obviously done up in this way as well. And hold on, it's also started. I'll do the same thing, D. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then.
All right.
Okay, you ready? So 1, 2. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and then. Okay. 1. Sorry. 1, 2. Go.
Lion. Assault.
I want to turn the sound slightly down here.
And this is the original sound as opposed to the last film.
Yeah.
Vistaphone Marconi.
Do you think they'll be talking in this one, D?
There probably will be narration, I would suspect. Perhaps not.
quite a big lack of sort of ships and watercraft on the Thames now, I suppose, because of course flight has replaced a lot of transport needs and cars.
Well, and of course, London's no longer industrial in the way it was once.
Yes.
Right, the dockland, you didn't have the sort of docks and
Beautiful train.
yeah. Peter Hitchens, I hear him moaning in the distance.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's not
Now that is a beautiful Art Deco. Yeah.
Lovely architecture.
By sea, by land, by...
Oh, there was a sorry. I paused this because there's a bit of voiceover D. So if you go back to 121,
All right.
I'm gonna turn this narrator up a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
By air. All roads lead to London, the biggest city in the world. The essence of London is not its size, but its variety. There is not one London, but many. Historic London, the Houses of Parliament, whose procedure still serves as a model for some nations. And the famous clock, Big Ben. Westminster Abbey, where the kings of England have been crowned for over 800 years. St. Paul's Cathedral, built by the greatest of English architects, Sir Christopher Wren. The Admiralty, nerve centre of the British Navy. The Tower of London,
Good
a
shot.
grim fortress built by William the Conqueror. The British Museum.
You do see that kind of that haze of grime that's on a lot of the
Yeah, a new
architecture.
office
Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something that modern people would not really see because it's all been scrubbed off and
London was made by the Thames. Up these
But
winding
naturally, of
reaches,
course, no
trading
hint of
ships and
apology
invaders
from this narrator.
sailed since Britain was part of the Roman Empire.
There's a bit of the industry. Look,
Yeah.
you see the industry.
so I have to call this stream. This is what they took from us.
Oh,
Red
yeah.
sailed barges take a day off once a year and race for the flag of the river.
They're doing a good job in this colorization, haven't they?
In the estuary to the heart of London are 60 miles of docks, wharfs and factories. London's latest power
The old
station,
power
Battersea,
Yeah, it's Battersea Power Station.
Looking glistening.
How long was Battersea actually operational for? Because you just mentioned it's quite new, and almost for my entire life it was not operational. So how long did it actually operate for, Battersea?
Say that it operated up into the 70s, perhaps.
It's
Not sure
that's
about
not
that.
very good for a power station, to be honest, is it? 50 years?
Disembark their passengers
40 years?
lower down at Tilbury. Day in, day out, trains are loading and unloading the produce of Britain and of the world. For London is the busiest port in Europe.
Banana! Yes, we have no banana.
See, I quite like this industrial aesthetic, D. I like the 30s industry look.
I mean, even things that would have been perceived as ugly then don't come across as ugly now, which is very strange. I mean, health and safety? What health and safety?
Just a high-rise worker there in his waistcoat and flat cap. Doesn't care. Just, doing his job.
No, forget though, it was immigrants who built the country, right?
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
where are they? I don't see them. Here we go. Look at the local level. That lean, epic lean.
Old London, the London of Pepys, Johnson and Dickens, is now the headquarters of business and finance.
Finesse.
Already setting in.
Bankers and merchants' citadel.
Oh,
See, like, this sort of thing you don't associate with the early 30s,
By
or
cable
at least
and
I don't.
telephone,
No.
every capital and every corner of the world.
Look at that.
Even the city is changing its old buildings for new, and the Bank of England is in a new home. Just round the corner in Throgmorton Street, stockbrokers still do business after the stock exchange is closed.
fine ginger hair there.
I like the way they're all wearing top hats, Steve.
Yeah.
True capitalists.
Yeah. I mean, I like how generally everyone wears a hat, you know, and the hat would have
Yes.
been a mark of your place in society to some degree.
Rotten Row, where
And of
London
course,
Paris
Mr. D, as you pointed out, that film of grime would get in your hair as well. So there was a practical reason to wear a hat.
Mm. Especially with
Yeah,
the
it was-
pomade.
play on acres of grass under the shade of forest trees.
Oh,
I mean, I still think, right, considering this is the middle of the Great Depression, London looks
Another
significantly
contrast.
nicer than it
Typical
does now,
London
to
mountain.
me.
Very
Well,
it does.
I mean, we tend to think of the Depression as being sort of a single event, but it was, you know, it just like any historical event, people's lives went on
close by are the fashionable
pretty
shopping
much as normal throughout the whole thing.
Bond Street.
I do like the shop dummy with a cigarette. That's very
Yeah.
good. And again, I mean, look at the sort of abundance of all this. I was noticing the produce in that one shop, and he's
Yeah.
having an ice cream.
Here's some London urchins.
Little urchins.
It's a young Lumberg there.
Mm. Oh,
Oh,
no
that's
rainbow helmet,
no.
no glitter makeup on the face.
All year round, the pageantry and ceremonial of London provide a succession of free shows for its inhabitants and visitors. Here is the Judges' Procession, which takes place each October before the law courts open. Another type is the dustman, with his wide-brimmed felt hat.
The dust.
Even the dustman had his own hat. Yes.
Mm.
Oh, look,
God,
Pearly King. Pearly King.
The real Cockney type is the Pearly King,
An actual
with his suit
Cockney.
covered with tiny pearl
Yeah.
buttons. His kingdom is Hampstead Heath and the bank holiday.
Ah. Mrs. Cobbett out selling her flowers.
Oh, yeah.
Based in Trumpton-Pilled, of course.
I mean, that's literally her right there.
Yeah.
Round Buckingham Palace, the London residence of the King, centres the military pageantry, which is another feature of London's daily life.
I mean, think of this, right? And think back to the last Deepest Law I did with, you know, that Pepsi Max woman jumping out and sitting on the boombox.
Oh God, that was the most depressing Christmas stream I think I've ever watched. Absolutely cursed that was. And of course, watching this, you get the sense that that something real was happening here. I mean, I always get this sense now that all of this reality of a city, this sort of functional, real city that had been there for 1,000 years, is now just a sort of simulation. And any sort of these traditions which carry on just seem to be a kind of simulation. And you look at this, and again, it may be just the modern sense coming into it, but I do feel like these are like real people living their lives.
The end of the day's work. Schools, offices and shops close. And the buses, tubes and trains of the London passenger transport...
It's not overcrowded, is it? I mean, it's not busy, but it's not like it is now.
Some travel to their homes perhaps 30 or 40 miles away from their work.
Look at that.
All these people smoking on the underground as well. Open-fronted taxis. I can't believe that.
Sorry, Panama, but what were you saying?
It feels funny to me that sort of what we have now versus what we had then, and you still had sort of the reactionaries complaining about it. They didn't know how good they had it.
Hampstead Heath and many others become playgrounds for the city's children.
Oh, Hampstead Heath. Well, in my youth, it was not a playground for the city's children any longer. Yeah.
But those 1933 reactionaries, Panama, they saw what was coming, mate.
They did, but my God, they should have. I hope they enjoyed the moment while they had it. Because I mean, I think we're at a point now where we have literally nothing left. Like we are actually in the ashes, but we haven't even got the ashes. I don't think. We're just on a bare floor.
So depressing.
Oh.
Night falls, and London, the city of pleasure, takes over from London, the city of commerce.
Yeah.
This is the debauch coming through, dude.
Yeah, here we go.
Even 1930s debauchery seemed wholesome, I think.
It always gets worse.
I mean, who in their right mind would look at this footage that we've been looking at and then point to London today and think in terms of progress? That's my question.
Of course, AA. You got to remember they didn't have our NHS. That's what you have to remember. This was a horrible, evil time to live in which everybody suffered under oppression.
Is it not obvious, Dee, that we've suffered decline since the 1933?
Decline? I think it's worse than decline. I think total collapse is the phrase I would use. Yeah, exactly. What were all these people doing? What was this? Without the NHS, what was this society even existing for?
Well, you've got to remember, behind closed doors, these are the narratives that this is the modern cope that we'll hear, right? Behind closed doors, you can imagine those women, they were probably getting beaten up by their husbands. Behind closed doors, you don't know the misery that went on. They were sleeping 10 to a bed. They were sleeping 10 to a bed, dude.
But they did, that was just life. That's just human life. This is the problem with this kind of thing. What's the dark underbelly of this? Well, of course there was a dark underbelly to this, as there has always been to every society and every civilization that has ever existed. That is just the nature of human life. But most of these people, I will say that I do think that there is a modern malady to some extent, that most of these people did not. They did not have a counter narrative to their lives running through their head at all time. They didn't have the media constantly kind of counter signaling every aspect of their lives and their civilization. I mean, they were just living their lives as people had lived their lives since, we crawled out of the muck. And I think that there's just a fundamental difference there.
So we're moving forward now to the 1950s, and same drill. D, I'm going to count to 3, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, and then, okay?
Right.
1, 2, and play. So I don't think we've got sound on this one, so we can speak without any narrator coming through. Now this has been colorized from the 50s. Slightly kind of ethereal quality to the film here.
Yeah. This may be natural color. I think that it says AI enhanced version, so I think that they have done that where they've kind of normalized the frame rate and stabilized the picture a bit.
Notice the markings on the road now.
Well, of course, and the Belisha beacons there, and
more cars.
Yeah.
Notice
now
how
again, of course.
Sorry.
Well, this is again, even though we're looking at this as a kind of idealized past, I mean, I think a lot of the maladies that have gotten worse and worse started to really build up in this era, So if you want to talk about a dark undercurrent, I think that the dark undercurrent that has really caused problems it probably started around this time.
Oh yeah.
And yet, still, the lorry driver has a collar and a tie.
And his boots.
Yeah.
Oh, and Woolworth.
Department stores. Again, but look how this seems probably because of the color grading, but there's something cleaner about this, and something. And again, as you pointed out, with the kind of lack of disposable material, there's much less litter. It's clean street.
But now, of course, it was this era where the great proliferation of disposable material began to come about. Although less prominently in London than it did in America at this time.
You mentioned America. I don't know if it's because of the colorization, but these scenes look more American. It somehow looks more American than the London of the 1930s that we were looking at. Don't know what that is, but maybe we're seeing a little bit of a cultural imperialism creeping in after World War II. Possibly. Less so here, more when we're looking at the shop fronts and things like that.
Right, and I think you're right. I think that in the sense of the graphic design and the kind of display of merchandise, a lot of that would have really been influenced by America at this point. So, I think there's definitely something to that.
See, one of the weirdest things about watching this footage is that some of these places haven't changed, really. I mean, the buildings are the same buildings that we'd see now. I can imagine if you walk down this street today, it wouldn't look that different.
No.
It's not so different.
Now, this street would certainly look very different today.
Oh,
where is this in London? Any idea?
That's right. Again, I'm trying to figure out where this is.
Is it High Street Kensington? Is it High Street Kensington? Trying to figure out where we are.
Yeah, it could be. I can't see on the buses either.
Are you sure this isn't Oxford Street with that wide shopping avenue?
Oh, you might be right. It could be.
Oh,
Oxford.
yeah,
this looks like Oxford Street.
Yeah, this could be.
You see, though, if you just showed me this footage and didn't tell me where it was, I'd probably be guessing American towns.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Aside from the cars, the cars. That styling of the cars is something that clearly has come from Detroit. That had definitely been an influence.
Obviously,
One thing
Mrs.
that
A
always
isn't
strikes
dead. She would know where this was if I asked her. Carry on.
One thing that always strikes me about watching these kind of ephemeral films is just I'm struck by when I see a person there. I mean, this person had, that man on the bicycle had no idea that he would be frozen in history, and that three very strange people would be watching him at 3:00 in the morning in 2020, the space year 2020.
Almost 100 years hence. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very removed from the reality of these people.
Also, notice the general lack of obesity among the people you see.
I mean, almost complete lack of obesity.
Very, very rare.
Look, Nescafe, AA. Look.
Yeah, I saw that. Nescafe Gold sneaking in. Is this Piccadilly Circus?
Yeah, this would be Piccadilly Circus.
It's going to have to. I'm trying to figure out where we are. I think.
Yeah.
I used to work down there.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting how they've got the camera pointing out the back of the vehicle rather than the front to capture all this. That's quite strange, isn't it? Because you can't see what's coming.
Okay, where's this now? This is
Grace Brothers department store.
Ground floor perfumery.
I mean, they must be in Soho here.
Well, it's all the red lights. I think it marks it out as Soho.
I always got lost around there, Poland Street and all those places.
You got lost in Soho, did
all
you?
the time.
Spend an evening in Soho, did you?
No, of course. Being
all there now. It's not like like swinging Soho in.
No,
Soho hasn't been for about 50 years. I don't think.
Another thing that strikes me is I'm a huge fan of neon signage and neon tubes, and it's all of these displays, all of these signs are neon, and of course it's a dying art. It is something that is almost completely died out.
Why is neon stopped? Why is that no longer a thing?
Well, there's a few reasons. One is it just requires too much skill to be able to do it. I mean, the people who made these signs were extraordinarily skilled craftsmen, and it's much cheaper and easier to make the kind of standard printed signs or shaped fluorescent signage that's so common now, or LED signage. It's just too expensive. And also, again, it depends upon the regulations, but it's also quite inefficient. So that may factor into it.
Further evidence of decline.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly the current signage is a downgrade on the neon signs.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Hideous. Just absolutely hideous.
I mean, I think it's worth remembering that this is like looking at a patient with cancer, say a month into their sort of end, and whereas we now are sort of like a year or more into their sort of collapse.
I think we're in the morgue. I think we're in the morgue already.
Well, we're heading there.
I will throw in a thing about the neon signs, though. Of course, there's plenty of writing from this period and before that, decrying the ugliness of neon defacing all of the buildings. So
it is somewhat garish. Yeah, I mean, I can sympathise with the 50s reactionary, but he was again. I mean, the 30s reactionary would have been well within his rights to be complaining about this.
Yes.
The 50s reactionary, I can understand this point of view, but viewed from the vantage point of the deathbed as we are here, this is still looking quite good.
The other thing that strikes me here is notice how dark it is. Now that's partially a consequence of the film, but also this was before the kind of high energy sodium discharge lighting, certainly well before the kind of blinding LED white street lighting and such. You know, most of the kind of lights illuminating the sort of street lamps and things like that were quite dim compared to modern, you know, sort of modern illumination. And so, you know, there was night was night was a thing in a city, you know, at least more so than it's become now.
There's not that horrible orange glare that you get in all sorts of road lights all over the country.
Yeah, that's the sodium lights. No, they're that's now a thing. Is basically a thing of the past, or is going to be a thing of the past, because all those are being replaced by LED lighting. Even though it's of course much more apt to fail than those. I mean, those sodium lights are quite reliable, but that's another story for another day. Why that's happening? I stopped at a traffic light.
Yeah. The guy in that car must be. Sorry, go on.
Did they just literally just stick a camera on the back of the car and just film?
I think they did.
Yeah, looks like it. Still a policeman there, stood at the crossing.
I mean, that's a bad bit of architecture in the top right. I don't know.
Look, see, there's the first instance of a tumor.
Well, also you can see that those are fluorescent strip lights in the ceiling. That's why it gives it that greenish cast on this type of film, which is not balanced to deal with the color spectrum from those lights. So it does have that terrible kind of greenish quality, and that is something that would have really started to proliferate around this period.
I mean, the first slab of cancer, if you want to put it that way, you know, there'd already been like 5 years of labor at this point. So,
and they had their NHS, of course.
Yeah, of course, our NHS was alive by this point. Yeah,
spreading its tentacles.
Yeah, I mean, that last shot there is very evocative of modern London almost, with just those really, really lit up cubes of glass, you know, hot towering in the background. I mean, you look at that shot from the 30s. Again, it amazed me to see the Tower of London actually being kind of prominent and kind of commanding as it was meant to be, because of course it's if you look at it now, all of my life I've seen that building, it is just dwarfed by everything around it. Everything is scaled up dramatically, so it just looks tiny.
Well, let's have a look at the final video now. This is from the 1970s. So the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning of the end.
Oh dear.
But I've still got a funny feeling that it'll be better than the London of 2020. But okay, so
you remember this London, Mr. D?
I do have vague memories of this at the tail end of the 70s. Yes.
Also, I mean, can we just that is a good image to start on, isn't it? It's sort of sallow, haggard-looking man with a cigarette, you know, drooping from his lips, and he stares.
And also, without even looking further than this frame, look at the man in the yellow shirt and the woman sort of unfocused behind him. You can already see that there's been a degradation in the standards of individual dress.
Oh yeah.
This man in the front excluded from that, of course. But
this could be Edward Hopper.
The casualization of this man. Okay, so let's 1, 2, and then D. Okay, 1, 2, and play.
Through glass darkly, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah.
Focus. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, this looks worse than the Depression era footage.
It does. That said that there is a pervasive griminess about the 1970s.
Yeah, and a sort of anemia.
Decline.
Yeah,
It's the old buses.
yeah. To steal that Douglas Murray phrase, it seems like a world that was tired. Sort of.
Did you
existential weariness?
Did you see that black fellow in the in the brown suit?
Was that our first diversity there?
I think it
Fritz
was our
the cat.
first ounce of diversity.
Yeah.
God, look
flares.
at of all the buildings compared to the 30s and the 50s. My God, we're sold all these truths about the great, the Depression, and it was the worst time, and look how glorious it was compared to this much later on.
I can stay that mullet.
No.
And everyone just looks greasier and grimier and uglier again.
There has been a decline in the Western face, as Bowden once said. The face has declined. Oh, Mad Magazine.
Oh, Mad Magazine.
What's Alfred E. Newman on the front of it?
Alfred E. Newman. Yes.
God, look at this. A lot more female flesh already. A lot more leg on the show.
Disgusting.
God, it's filthy.
It is filthy.
Even London today is cleaner than that.
Oh, Ken Russell's Savage Messiah playing at the cinema there.
Look, naked woman on the advert.
Black.
Flesh and blood.
Oh dear. Oh, look at the grime.
It's so sleazy as well. Look how sleazy this area is.
So sleazy.
Jesus, look at it.
I want to see if I can find more 70s London.
Yeah, we're gonna have to sort of indulge in this, I think. Oh, yeah, look, they've got those things.
The glass blocks. Yeah, look.
They've only just recently removed. None of the pavements in the 30s or 50s footage looked like this, did they? Christ.
Yeah. This is socialist Britain. Right here.
Absolutely. This is during the Wilson era, isn't it?
And again, peppered through these greasy, flare-wearing young people, you see these old people. These are old people who would have walked through the world of the 1930s and the 1920s and the 1930s, and they would have seen this. They would have seen this degradation happening. Like these women, they would know what happened.
She was probably married to a 1930s reactionary. Oh my God.
Dear me.
And of course, you will see that, as I said, the air was quite, there was quite a lot of particulate matter in the air from the coal. But at this period, the air was much worse because added to the coal particulate in the air was all of the automobile, and this was before the catalytic converters. So it was objectively a filthier time than than the Depression era.
It looks it.
Really
No
is
CCTV
so
cameras yet.
sleazy though. This area that we're looking at.
I mean, if you see these traffic lights in the modern day, there'd be a huge tower of CCTV cameras, wouldn't there, on top of them? I mean, that's one thing the 70s hasn't got that we have.
The surveillance state hadn't yet begun.
Yeah, not well. At least not in earnest.
No, I don't know what it is about this footage, but it really does look like a shit. Like it does look like a shithole, basically, isn't it?
Well, this is what it was like. I mean, I can tell you, this is what it was like.
God, on tour. Imagine coming on tour to this city.
What happened in the 20 years between 1950 and 1970?
Well, It was a rapid decline. It really was a rapid decline.
Right. We have to watch more 70s footage. I can't leave her on that.
I mean, we haven't even reached an hour yet. I mean, come on, we can do. I know it's late. It was early, I suppose. But come on, we can do a proper stream, can't we? Sort of.
Oh look, 70s Soho and Chinatown.
Oh,
that seems like it'd be sleazy. All right.
Do you two both agree with me that the one thing about Chinatown that's the worst is that the streets are constantly covered in that layer of grease? The actual street, like you're just treading through grease.
Home movie footage. Right, I'm gonna have to send these to you, Dee.
Yeah, send me the link on send a DM or something.
I quite enjoyed looking at this old footage. What about you?
Oh, I love it. I do this sort of thing on my own anyway. All right, let me snag these. I can just see the thumbnail for the second one. Joe Collins.
I mean, one thing I would say though about what we just saw is that I think I prefer that kind of faded Edwardianism that the 70s was. You know, it's all still there, but it's just covered in 60 years of just hellish, sort of rotting. But today, all of it's gone, and it's all just so sterile. It's objectively not as shit, but it's sort of just it's just vacuous. There's just nothing to it, as Mr. D pointed out earlier.
That Piccadilly fashion 1D as well. We're gonna have to do that one, and then I think we'll end. We might end on this one from the 80s, shall we? Let's have a look. Get one from the 80s, and then we'll call it a day, I think. Right. Or a night.
Well, I would agree, and this is just sort of back to what I was saying about the idea that I just have this weird feeling about that. It seems like all of this real, even the shit London of the 70s. It's now all been replaced by a simulated London. Yeah, that's been kind of scrubbed and it's sold. Just sort of
every shop
Disney kind of simulation.
Yeah, it's all owned by some massive conglomerate, Oh, it's just an economic zone for large corporations to hawk their wares in now. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think the corporatization is the ultimate worst part. Okay, 1980s Brixton. That looks promising.
I can't tell you how happy it is just in any era to see all these people not wearing fucking tracksuits. It just all people wear are just those horrible like tracksuits that taper in at the calf and look silly and ridiculous. And that's what people wear, it seems.
Okay.
Miseries in shell suits.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm now downloading the last the 80s one. So just give me a moment.
Great.
Should we take a look at super chats? Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, well, if you are sending super chats, obviously I'm not going to be able to read them out because I am a man from the past. I'm a man from a few days ago.
To be fair, AA, I don't think we've told them so far, have we? I don't think they know that this is pre-recorded yet.
I think I mentioned it at the start. I can't remember.
Well, I hope
you did. Yeah, you did mention it at the start.
Okay, shall we start with Central London streets, 1971? Should we start with that?
Yeah.
It's only a minute long.
Got it.
This is brilliant, by the way. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, I'm glad that we did this as well. Okay, let's start with that. So hopefully, Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Are you ready, D? 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Yep. 1, 2, and.
Yep. Yellow bus. Huh.
It was they're advertising the Yellow Pages.
Oh, it's Yellow Pages. Yes. Themed advertisement.
A very short skirt.
Now this has to be. Is that 71? This doesn't look. This looks like the late 70s. I've shaved it there.
Savoy. I've eaten
Savoy.
there.
Same.
I went to that. Trying to. Who's that guy who's on? I don't know the name of the chef now. You know, the Gordon Ramsay's protege. He's got kind of weird wolf eyes.
Don't know. Now, what was their story? I want to wonder.
Greasy 70s people. God, look, it's very sad.
Covent Garden.
I've never liked Covent Garden. Oh, it's short.
Yeah, very short one. And then we'll start with another one. I'll get up another one. And let's go for Piccadilly Fashion D. And then we'll go to the nightlife, and then we'll go to the 80s, okay?
Okay. Piccadilly Fashion.
Again, it's only 2 minutes long.
All right. So this is 35mm film. So this would be professional. You know, this is like motion picture film.
So 1, 2, and then 1, 2, and go.
Yeah, look at the clarity of this. Oh my! Look at the state of him.
Look at that fellow. Oh dear. Why did everybody wear flares? I suppose everybody wears tracksuits now, so you know.
Yeah. I mean, everyone looks terrible. Every one of these people look terrible.
Yeah, objectively terrible. Look at them.
Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull there.
Yeah. There's a young Corbin.
Yeah.
Oh dear. I can't. How did you go from like the 30s or the 50s to this? Such a.
There's a nice gent with a pipe that looked alright, but I was going to say even the men in suits look bedraggled. You know.
Oh, look at them. Oh.
This is what just 20 years of socialism does to a country.
Now there.
I think I finally understand what Kubrick was doing. With like films like A Clockwork Orange. Now I sort of get the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Now it sort of all unlocks. 70s hair. Oh. I mean, they all look native at least.
Most of them.
Mm.
People seem a bit more uptight as well, weirdly.
Yeah, yeah. There's a grimness to the people and their expressions. Bananas again there.
They know what's coming. That's why.
Yes.
Dark winter is coming.
And that's that.
Okay.
I wish they'd done more of that, because again, you don't often see kind of spontaneous 35mm footage, because it was so expensive to film, you know, like that. So you would never see kind of wild footage like that. It was quite interesting. I wonder what that was made for.
Yeah, and this is what I like about this kind of raw stock footage in this way, is that you get to see kind of life unedited, you know, unscripted. Because obviously, if you watch a 70s movie, it wouldn't look like this. So, all right, are you ready? 1, 2, and then this is the Chinatown and Soho in the nighttime. Again, 35mm. 1, 2, go.
Oh.
Oh, the windmill.
Yeah.
Yeah, famous for the wrong reason.
This is more of the Soho that I expected to see.
This is like video nasty country.
Yeah. Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, yes, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Wimpy there.
Oh, there's a Wimpy, yeah. London Experience.
I mean, some of that neon is still in effect, look.
Yeah. Prince
Yeah.
of Wales.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Prince of Wales is still there.
The bitch.
Joan Collins as the bitch. Yes, I
The bitch.
remember that film vaguely. Yeah.
Swiss.
Center. Yeah.
Oh, it's like looking at a foreign country. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, see-
London Sex Centre.
Yeah. See, I remember this. This was all going well into the 90s.
Oh, look at all the
this-
Chinese
this-
takeaways and. This is,
I was looking for a place called Lee Ho Fooks.
yeah.
Down there,
Oh,
down that street.
well, the Chinese menu in his hand.
Just the sex films and the Chinese restaurants.
Oh God! Can you
You
imagine
could
one of
get
the?
a Peking duck and a pair of rubber panties just in one go.
Can you imagine the hygiene standards in some of those 70s Chinatown restaurants?
Can you imagine like a 30s one of those labourers we saw up on the scaffold, and it's like this is what I spent my life working hard for, so that society could become this.
That one of those beef eaters from 1920.
Yeah, this is what you're enduring. Oh God!
Oh, there's still some more of this.
Oh, it's repeated, I think.
Talk of the town.
So,
Oh, is that Rolf Harris? It is.
oh yeah, look,
Yeah.
Paris. Oh God.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh, Death Trap. I've seen the film adaptation of that. Oh, the Garrick.
The Garrick. Yeah.
Mhm.
Good old Neon in front of the Garrick.
Mm.
And can you imagine some of the 70s sophisticates imagining how much better they were
Yeah.
in 1970s?
Peak of Western civilization, they probably thought. Oh dear, look at this dive.
There they are. Peking duck.
Still looks good.
Mm.
I've always thought Chinatown is a bit random in London.
It's horrible.
Mm.
I've never liked it.
I find it
Have you
very
been to the
random.
Chinatown in New York City?
Oh, of course, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
The thing is, those areas of New York seem very. Even those areas now in modern New York feel tokenistic and strange, because they used to be Chinatown and Little Italy right next to each other, and Little Italy is basically just like two restaurants now. You know, I mean, barely going is what I mean. And Chinatown is similar if you've been there recently.
Mm.
Even New York Chinatown. So the big one is in San Francisco, though, right?
Right.
You know, I've only been there in movies though, like Big Trouble in Little China.
Mm.
Okay, so this is the final one, and it is 1980s Brixton stock footage.
Oh.
You
Well,
ready for this?
I've never been to Brixton, so I can't really comment.
I've been to Brixton. I went to a jazz club there.
Oh.
I was dating someone briefly, and less said about that, the better.
Yeah, don't seem like a jazz aficionado. Oh, have we started?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Countdown.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. 1, 2, go.
Right.
Oh, there's a bit of sound here.
Slightly more familiar.
Of course, Electric Avenue was the famous street
Notice
in Brixton.
diverse it is now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brixton is one of the areas that the people from the West Indies migrated to.
Yeah. Now this looks more like modern London to me.
And that still was the case up until fairly recently, but it's become like hipsterfied now, and
Yeah.
it's kind of become like 30-something professionals and people like that. So a lot of people in Brixton, when I went there, were complaining that the authentic feel of the place, which is what we're seeing here, has been lost because it's been
God
taken over
forbid.
by hipster wankers, essentially.
Mm. We're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue.
But to be honest, 70s peak Brixton looks pretty shit, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
I
understand
mean,
it at all.
look at this. I mean, look at the state we boarded up.
Oh,
when
dear.
was
This
peak
is- this is-
Electric Avenue?
This is Thatcher's Britain, I think,
Oh, yeah.
as they would say.
Oh yeah, sorry, we're in the 80s. I forgot that.
Tobacco adverts there. Didn't see those now.
So
Well, you
grim.
can't see any adverts that aren't approved by our great censor of public materials.
Oh, no.
But there's a piece of me. I mean, we were talking about how dismal it all was, but there's a piece of me that kind of quite likes the grim Britain set to a Smith soundtrack.
Well, there is an authenticity that again isn't there now. This would all be hipsterized and corporatized now. This is rotten, but at least it's real rot. It's not. It's not
authentic rot.
It's authentic rot, which is always better than
one of these shitty places we're seeing now would probably.
Look, we've been interrupted to have a progressive advert.
Oh, I'm
gonna embarrass the story.
Sorry, I'm on 240D. Sorry.
All right, 240. Sorry, for God's sake.
Oh, that was perfect.
I was about to say one of these grotty looking places that we're seeing here would probably, if you wanted to buy it today, it would probably cost you over £1 million.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to say I would rather go back and live here than live in our totalitarian lockdown hygiene state, crumbling shithole that we're in now. I mean, this looks preferable to modern Britain to me.
Again, it's authentic.
Are you ready? D.
Yeah.
1, 2, and then 1, 2, go. I mean, this reminds me of like Shane Meadows films or something like that.
I can feel the soil falling over my head.
I noticed there's a lot of blacks, but not many Muslims, Middle Easterners. Like I suppose that's been a change since then.
Well, I mean, Brixton. I think just Brixton is traditionally a black area in London.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd have to go to one of the other areas of London I think most of the Asian population went to Birmingham and up in the northwest, Wigan sort of area.
Oof. Railton Road.
See, in a different sensibility, I quite dig like depressing 80s footage as well.
I can sympathise with that. Yes.
Look at that awesome derelict as I call it.
Oh, so bourgeois. Derelict.
See, that's even the biggest tragedy. If I moved there, I literally would probably be one of the hipster wankers.
Yeah, you love it.
I mean, the thing is that there's a possibility here. I mean,
even these sort of black immigrants are quite well turned out compared to the ones you see now, and they seem sort of benign compared to.
They came from West. I mean, some of these would have been actual Windrush generation, wouldn't they? Some of them would have been.
These were not Somalians.
Look at the amount of boarded up properties there. There's a lot of them, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I was about to say, like, was it Sunday, or were all these places genuinely just boarded up?
It was a bank holiday or something. I don't know.
Every day is like Sunday. Every day is silent and grey.
Yeah. Closing down.
Closing down, half price sales.
This is like watching a Clash song.
Way.
But why were all those businesses closing down?
Depression.
There's a
This was the wages of the 70s being collected. You know, this was that sharp decline, and you know, I mean, I have memories of power cuts and the strike actions, and you know, British Home Stores there.
Yeah. Only recently closed, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jamaican accent.
That's a bit more modern. Black bloke in a hood.
And this, of course, being videotape rather than film, so it has a different quality to it.
Oh, this is awesome! I love seeing this derelict here.
Oh,
look at that, boarded, like literally boarded up.
Oh God, look at it!
Opening his.
It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Christ.
In a strange way, this may be the most reactionary stream that has ever been on this channel.
I think it may
talk
be,
about.
Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. Oh, I love it.
Oh dear.
There's a Shea Meadows movie inside each one of these buildings.
I mean, you are a kind of a connoisseur of misery, aren't you, eh?
Yeah. Dude, you see there's a bit of milkman localism there?
Yeah, the Studebaker.
The milk float rides your mind.
Look how run down everything is as well.
Pool.
What's that?
I don't know. What does that mean?
What do they mean pool here?
Is it like the pools? Is it the football pool?
Playing. There's a pool table there, I think.
Pool table.
Someone's bought a pool table and is opening it to the public.
I'm telling you now, right? These rundown buildings now, that will be owned by like a doctor or a lawyer or someone like that.
It'll cost about 5 million.
Look, is someone peeking out of that, or is it just blowing in the breeze? A curtain.
I could do this all day, just literally looking at the ashes of civilization.
I would be happy to make this like a 2 or 3 hour stream for it. Just keep doing this, just constantly.
I want to find more Brixton from the 80s footage.
Let's do it. I'm really enjoying this. I don't want to stop. There's an old bloke.
Yeah.
1950s reactionary.
Yeah, he knew. Well, to be fair, he probably votes Labour. There's a Rolls Royce.
The Rolls Royce pulling up in front of the.
That's probably Cyril Smith about to step out of that Rolls Royce and go into one of the derelict.
An actual window that isn't boarded up.
I don't think we have.
Why are they all boarded up? I don't. Are they boarded up because they get smashed, or what's the deal?
I don't know. So some of them are open though, so maybe it wasn't that cold.
Oh, that's a curtain. I can see there's a curtain up there.
God, I can understand why my elderly relatives are such big fans of Thatcher. I mean, if this was, I mean, even nowadays, it's not quite this, bleak.
Humdrum town. This town will bring you down.
Oh,
We've got to keep going. We've got to keep going. This is addictive.
live my life.
I love they
God
just
knows I've got to live mine. Sorry.
It's not like they're filming Oxford Street. They're just on this one bleak corner somewhere in Brixton, just unidentifiable corner. Just
Awesome.
God,
Absolutely awesome.
trotter trading there.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, presumably somebody's standing there with a camera.
Yeah.
What was he filming? What did he?
Stock footage for news, it seems. Thames News.
Just like we need depressing footage of Brixton.
Talk about the economy, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to specifically go for more.
Brixton.
Let's see London archival 80s. See what comes up.
Yeah, because I mean, it does feel slightly unfair to go from
Oh my God.
the Thames to Brixton.
I'm just seeing such brilliance here. London's council estates during the 80s and 90s, social housing, poverty, and vandalism. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I mean, I should point out that as I said, it's slightly unfair. The very roughest areas of the 80s when we didn't do that for the 30s.
Okay, I'm gonna mute it. I just want to look at their kind of depressed faces.
Okay, wait. Can you send a link for this?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
He's so carried away wanting to just look at the misery.
For the less fortunate among us, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
We should end on like 1910 London if you can find one.
There is right. We'll do like 10 minutes of this, and then there is. I seem to remember there's like actual Victorian London.
Yeah, there is. There's very very early footage that they've cleaned up slightly.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one from like 1902 that I've seen. That's quite good.
Nice. Okay, let me.
Here we are, Victorian England. You can do this one.
All right. Yeah, send me the link, and I'm getting the council estate one.
We won't watch it all, obviously, but just watch enough to satiate our, thoughts. That one. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and there's another interesting looking one here as well. I'll send you that one as well because it looks really interesting. So.
Okay. You'll just have to give me a minute to get these. Okay.
Love a bit degradation. I do.
Yeah, it's like degradation at 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's quite. It looks like a sort of Cambran or something there. That shot. Tredegar, maybe. I don't know.
Tredegar.
We have to imagine what they're saying as well. Because I know there's some interviews.
Oh.
Are you literally downloading it?
Yeah, because if I try to play a video, I mean, I live in the countryside, so if I try to watch something whilst on the stream, it doesn't work.
I would like to point out I also live in the countryside, but my internet is fine because Welsh infrastructure is extremely uneven. I think country infrastructure in general,
Yeah.
depending on random areas.
I mean, I live in a barn. I live in a 400-year-old barn. Oh, okay. I've got the last one here. Labourers. Oh, now you're talking.
Yeah.
I like a bit of rough.
Come on, Mr. D. Remember, we're on a stream here. This is people are actually watching this right now.
Okay, are you ready? Are you ready for the London's council estates in the 80s, and then we'll try to white pill and go back to Victorian England.
Return to tradition.
Yeah.
Return to tradition. All right, let me find it. Where is it? Where's it gone? Okay. Skip advert. I want to have an advert.
I'm just happy looking at the still of this depressing building.
There is something quite drawing to it, isn't there?
I love the derelict. And this is even better than derelict. This is living derelict.
You're such a hipster. You're such a bourgeois hipster, aren't you?
All right, I'm ready to go with council estates.
All right. 1, 2, and go. This is Mozart estate.
So when there's like washing up in the sort of sink area, do you turn to your wife and go, no, leave it. It's derelict.
No, but I do like the footage of. Have you ever seen With Nail and I? Where they have them like washed up for ages.
Pile of, yeah.
I quite like seeing that.
Can I just point out that the magic flute in the Mozart estates? I mean, if there ever was irony,
he doesn't look like a council estate sort of fellow.
I think he's probably a council official.
Oh dear.
He's responsible for this in some way, but he doesn't live there, obviously.
He had those 80s middle manager type glasses on.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Clockwork Orange. I think Alex Boy lived in a better conditions than this 80s council estate.
I don't mean to be impolite, but she's terrifying. I don't understand. I don't. Look at the decline of the face from.
Yeah.
Now, does she live there?
It looks like. It looks like he was the MP who punched someone who threw an egg at him.
I can't remember.
Oh, what? John Prescott?
Yeah, she looked like John Prescott in drag.
Oh God.
Oh, awesome! I just love a boarded up window. So it's my new thing.
Yeah, come on. You're supposed to be talking about how much you hate this. Come on.
No, I've already aestheticized it and I kind of like.
Oh God!
Look at that.
There's
tearing down.
This is very. I love just the idea that you're so thrilled by this.
I just love I love the shots of her looking over, looking depressed,
tearing down at the camera.
Also, look, there was a whole class of these types of women who emulated Mrs. Thatcher.
Yeah, with the bouffant.
And the just. Traditional streetscape.
Think of the glories we were looking at in the 1920s. Look at what it came to.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is again.
God, no, I think that's a different one.
It's
the same woman on a different day.
That's a man.
That's the same woman on a different day.
Oh,
dear me.
Oh,
John Prescott in his Aladdin Sane wig.
So doughy and slack faced. It's just
she's had it done, that bouffant.
Yeah. It's not coping too well with the wind though.
She's probably proud of that.
She's probably proud of this estate somehow.
Oh God.
This doesn't look too dissimilar from the halls I was at when I was at Cardiff University. bit of a
Stonebridge estate now. Do you think they were kind of like wanker 80s journalists who were like me and just kind of got off on like, oh, make it look as depressing as possible?
probably.
Okay, give me the shot of that woman looking over depressed. Oh yeah.
Haven't a lot of these types of buildings been pulled down?
Many of them. This is what, by the way, these buildings are why people hate brutalism. I mean, even though, these are kind of very low quality examples of it, but and the reason why, the reason why that sort of international style and brutalism became so popular is because it in the lowest sort of incarnation, it's quite cheap. It's very fast and very cheap architecture to build.
Can you imagine just saying to someone, "Yeah, this is your home"? This
awful. Why would you come to Britain? Why would you immigrate to Britain to live here?
It's so depressing. Look, even those
even those windows. And keep in mind that these buildings can't have been more than like 10 or 15 years old at this point.
Yeah, these are fairly new.
Well, I think we've lost
he's in ecstasy looking at these. Oh, it's magical.
Oh man.
I may have actually. Oh, I can't. I don't know. If I've been here.
Look at that little breath of fresh air, that little island of sanity in the midst of this horror.
Oh man.
Very diverse.
Very diverse, yeah.
Oh, relentlessly grim. This is
North
Peckham.
Peckham.
Oh dear. I've certainly been to Peckham. Didn't stay.
Why do they have to make it so depressing?
I don't. You have to remember, AA, that from the end of the war up to the Thatcher era, there was no money. That they couldn't afford to do anything beyond just the most kind of paltry efforts to provide housing. I mean, that's why most of these are now scrapped, because they couldn't afford.
I don't know when I'll have enough of this, though. I just can't get enough of.
Let's just keep going. Let's keep it rolling.
This is my. I thought it was watching 1930s London, but I think I found my new. Just 80s degradation is my new thing.
Notice how even this horrible estate has 2 policemen patrolling it, though. You wouldn't get that now.
You know, we were talking about the predictive power of movies, and that corridor that he was going down, that kind of, didn't that remind you of the alleyway from Clockwork Orange?
It did. I was going to say it because I can't remember where they filmed that. I'll check.
I bet these are really progressive priests.
Can you imagine the amount of progressivism that went into making these estates as well?
God, yeah.
In the first place.
I mean, this was the international modernist dream of the kind of workers' housing writ large. That just it was a stillborn thing. It came and failed.
Reality got in the way.
But a still value was created because in 2020, a smug hipster kind of watched it as if it was, just.
Look at this. Militant.
Yeah, you can see this figure in the background.
So that's like a leftist newspaper, I'm guessing. Militant.
Yeah, I mean that was where it was called, wasn't it? The militant tendency.
Right.
So Alex's estate was Thamesmead South. and specifically his home was Tavy Bridge Centre, and it's all been demolished.
Oh my god. It's so grim. Is this still here, this Peckham estate, or has it been...
It
Have
may
all of
look
these been knocked down?
I feel like many of these are gone.
Christ.
Oh,
That guy's got a mad look in his eye.
Well,
What do you think?
got
Well, he has to
hit
live
with
there.
pieces of wood, so he's been forced to move there and get beaten.
I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it? You know, you wouldn't even know this was Britain if you were just... Because they look so depressed. They look so depressed. These guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
God.
the state of him as well.
How do people do this without realizing what it looked like at the time, though? That's what I don't understand.
Okay. Shall we move to the Victorians? Have we had enough of this?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm not sure I can let this go.
No, I can happily let it go.
Hillary House.
Again, I'm struck by the fact that these buildings, most of them were like 15 years old when this was taped, and it turned into that in 15 years.
Do you mind if we just check what the comment section says, AA? Do you mind if we just have a look down there? If there is one.
Let me have a look. Oh, okay, well,
Move on.
sadly, these council estates have now reduced themselves to modern-day breeding grounds for gang activity. Postmodern, dehumanizing, and deliberate. Where's Del Boy? No one even speaking on Stonebridge Estate probably got the mic robbed. That girl predicted the future. Right. Let's see what she says, shall we? That girl who predicted the future, let's see what she says. Okay, I'm going to turn the sound up for this.
All right, we're at 36:55, Mr. D.
And there's an ad coming. Hold on.
Oh dear.
No trouble.
Some of the two.
Corporate. Look. There's an estate.
We can
Okay.
Right.
very quiet and good, but there's some of them that really let them down.
Flats need doing up, right? Oh, yeah, they're just telling you that they are broke. They have not got the money to do them up. They're going to sell it off and privatise it. Then you will lose your homes as well. I ain't going to lose my home, my dear.
There wasn't one complaint until today. And I stuck by my guns. I mean, as I say, it doesn't make any difference to me. I'm just voicing my opinion. These squatters have been no problem at all. They've got no papers in it,
Squatters complained about what they said was an excessive show of force against those who were evicted.
They haven't been liking what's going on, but they haven't been resisting.
Okay, he's all ready for the coof.
There's no petrol bombs, there's no kind of bomb.
I mean, imagine sticking up for bloody squatters.
I know.
I just can't. Okay, let's move to Victorian to the Victorian England then.
It's like I'm looking like the footage from kind of pre-60s London and post-60s London. They both look like two foreign countries to me, just for different reasons.
Let's go to wonderful old London around 1900 in colour. Okay.
All right. Well, the past is another country, as the saying goes.
Hold on. Start it.
Probably cut this out for this one as well.
Okay. Ready, D?
Yeah.
1, 2, and go. And with that,
God, probably a few too many horses around for Mr. D's liking.
Don't. Miserable beasts.
well, we're back before cars.
Yeah. Some kind of a sign there.
Excellent top hats there. Great cigar.
Oh, look at
Again,
the deals being made there.
Has anybody noticed how in recent there's been an attempt of certain businesses to kind of re-emulate this, like sort of neo-Victoriana? Has anybody else noticed that?
What sort of businesses?
Well, you see some shops and even some large corporate ones I've noticed. They use symbols of this era in a very sort of cheap sort of corporate way. And there'll be fonts and signs and sort of iron railings and things that sort of hark back to this time in a sort of.
Well, there is a sort of hipster thing. There's this sort of Edwardian hipsterism that I associate with kind of beard oil and that sort of pretended. I think it has it sort of abuts against like steampunk as well.
Perhaps. Chesterton's London.
And I mean, again, were these people's lives worse in any material way? Really?
Bloody hell! Sorry.
Don't you have ad blocker here?
Should I pause?
Yeah, okay. I'm on 204.
Okay. I'll go to 204. Sorry. All right. Also, you'll notice as people's reaction to the camera is very different in this period than it would be, in the 50s or the 80s. But again, they wouldn't. It would have been a kind of a great novelty. I mean, look at that gentleman there with a cane. He's been staring at what looks like staring at the camera. I mean, this may be the only record of his life that exists today.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, I wonder who he was. Wonder what he did.
Yeah. What was when did he live? When did he die? He had no idea. He's standing there staring into eternity, into a terrible future that was to come after him.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of the council estates we were just looking at would have mortified anybody that we're looking at here. They wouldn't have believed that would exist.
Because we subsidize failure. In this age, if you failed, then you literally starved. And so people didn't, people had to make their way in the world. And once you remove that essential fact of existence, then you get the society that produces those boarded up shops and those council estates and all the rest of it.
Have you noticed he's acquired a friend at this point? There's another old guy.
Another old guy and an urchin, of course.
Yeah.
With bare feet by the looks of it.
Genuine urchin.
Genuine urchin. Horse-pulled tram went by there.
I mean, can you imagine trying to explain to someone from this era, in 70 or 80 years' time, they're going to build these awful monstrosities that are called council estates, and people are going to be defending the rights of immigrants to squat in them. And when we say immigrants, we mean people from Middle Africa. They'd be like, "What are you talking about? This is madness." And yet that happened.
Yeah, and your descendants will be told that you didn't exist and that you did not build this nation. That you were an oppressor and that everything about you was a crime, was a criminal act, and your empire was a blight upon the world. And that people would put up with it. That these people's, these people's descendants would literally subsidize being told that they are criminals, and that they are racist, and that they are evil, and that they didn't earn anything that they got.
And just remember as well, while this footage is being filmed, there are a group of very highly strung intellectuals and artists and people of note plotting to birth the world that we live in now, to bring all of this down and replace it with what we live in now.
I've noticed a couple of recognizable brands. Like, did you notice Cadbury?
Yeah,
while we were talking.
Lipton tea, yes.
One thing to note about this is that you may see a lot of people that look quite sort of stunted. And what I believe was really the growth of the welfare, the birth of the welfare state in Britain was this thing. I think it was the Sankey report, or perhaps the from around this time that did a sort of, it was like this Quaker Puritan who did a study into the poor conditions of working class men and demanded that the government intervene to fix it, which is what then happened, and the Liberals in about 1908 or so. So yeah.
Of course, we're watching this and kind of, seeing it through the, slightly rose-tinted glasses. Imagine Carlyle watching this. He'd have been horrified. He would have been like, "Who are all these Irish nomads that we're seeing here? This is just ribald nomadism," he'd say.
I mean, look at that gentleman there. That's just, it's amazing.
A lot of good.
I love the wonderment that all the people just staring at the camera. There's something very strange about that.
Look at that fellow there. He's like straight out of a western or something like that.
Staring down the lens.
That's a wild bit.
What's he doing in London in 1900?
All these people.
Governor.
All right. Yeah, it's a young lumber. Yeah.
Beasts.
Proper workhorses there. Massive pulling horses.
Yeah. Yeah, these aren't your layabout toffee-nosed horses like yours used to have.
I have to say, looking at the different eras that we've been looking at, I reckon 1933 was probably looking like London at its best. If I had to pick an era.
Probably, yeah. That's probably the peak.
Now you will notice, of course, that there isn't litter, but there is
dung.
Lots of dung, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you have like 8 million horses in a city. You get a lot of shite on the street.
Oh, got another ad.
Pause. Tell me where you...
Perfume. Hey, you must get ad block.
Yeah, uBlock Origin, I recommend.
It's such a long advert as well.
I know, 15 seconds of perfume.
Or the Brave browser, which blocks ads.
I'm on 8:30D.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
1, 2, and go. Fantastic leaning going on.
Very good.
I feel like you can't really sort of just stand about in the street these days either, or you just be sort of moved on for sort of, loitering.
I mean, that is kind of like musical leaning. I always remember, like, in musicals, people lean in very unnatural looking ways, but this guy's like literally just doing it in real life.
I think possibly the worst tragedy you could be afflicted with would probably to be born in like 1900. So throughout your life it would just be decline, and you would not live. You would just live through decline. That'd be it.
Well, you'd probably have to serve in both the world wars as well.
Yeah,
Probably.
you might not make it past the First World War. Well, again, this is another thing: is that many of these young men that you see will
Wiped
have
out.
gone through that grinder of terrible Nestle there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really go back to this once you've had the First World War. That's the thing.
There's a statue that needs pulling down for being a racist.
I think that's still there. That Crimean War Memorial.
Don't recognize it.
Where is this?
No idea.
Well, I recognize one view that we saw. Kodak, look.
Yeah.
Nestle had a very big presence in the adverts.
It's like the only two brands you ever see advertised are Cadbury's and Nestle. That's it.
Well, this was the birth of the brand as a
To be honest,
concept.
I didn't know Nestle were around in 1900.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I knew Cadbury's wasn't a grand. There's Bovril.
Oh, Bovril! Amazing.
I bought some Bovril today, randomly enough. For some reason, Mrs. A wanted it for AAA, and I don't exactly know why, but
I'm a big fan of Bovril, especially, of course, there was a dark period in the 2000s where they removed the beef, and it was sort of like yeast extract. They'd sort of turned it into Marmite, but the beef is back in it. So, big fan of Bovril. Grape nuts.
yeah. I didn't know they had these double-decker carriages. This is something I
mean, this was the forerunner of the bus, of the double-decker bus.
I mean, those horses are, there's only two of them there. They're pulling quite a lot of weight there.
I think it's fairly evenly sort of laid out, though. I think that's the trick, is the distribution. Also, horses are very strong.
I mean, look at the stair getting up to the top of that. But I mean, it's no mean feat. That
if you wouldn't have built to have
a car, that's a car,
a little car, yeah.
Beep beep.
It was kind
of
of
you wouldn't want to be involved in an accident whilst riding one of these.
No. I mean, you feel like all these people are off on their way to something that is consequential and that matters. Like they're all off to fuel something greater than themselves. Whereas now it's just, I'm off to work at my job in McDonald's, where I'll just make products for people to consume. Like that's it.
Those ships that we were seeing there. Maybe I played too much like Civilization 2 or whatever, but all I can think of when I look at those ships is that's like an early tech, and that's going to tech up something better.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Gentleman is lady there.
Can you imagine putting this much effort into getting dressed? The average person doing this.
Oh.
Metropolitan Church.
Okay. Another ad.
Oh. All right.
Relentless adverts. So I'm on 13:14. 1, 2, go.
All right.
Again, just no skyscrapers, no abominations peering into the horizon.
It is interesting to see the horses coexisting with the motor cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, which there would have been. I mean, there were various motorized vehicles for quite a long time before this, even.
Well, I mean, my mother talks about growing up in ruralish Wales in sort of the 60s. There were still cart horses.
There were still cart horses when I was a child. I remember. I remember the Rag and Boneman had a horse.
Yeah, up until fairly recently, still a viable option.
Well, that area hasn't changed that much.
No, that still looks just about like that, with the exception of a big thalidomide statue.
Oh, it'd be like a Starbucks there.
Socialists, looks like.
I feel like these are socialists.
Yeah, definitely. If they're out demonstrating like that.
They're plotting the ruin of society. There's a mechanized bus.
Yeah, this must be a little bit later than the other. Pear soup.
Wonder when this was. Because I feel like we've gone forward a few years.
Yeah, this looks like, it's gonna be 1910.
Probably somewhere.
Yeah.
The age of men, of course, 1910.
1910, the age of men. That's right. King Edward's on the throne. What is that in the middle of the roundabout there?
I don't know.
I think it's a lamp.
No,
there's like a wood. Yeah, there's like a pile of wood.
They look quite precarious, those buses, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was just again.
Wonder how often they had accidents.
I think it was more frequent than you would suspect. I certainly have read about them. Again, no markings on the roadways, no traffic lights. I mean, you had the policeman there. That was your traffic light.
I mean, one thing I'll mention is that 1900 or this early kind of late Victorian or early Edwardian London looks busier than the 1920s and the 1930s London that we saw.
You got to remember that the First World War cleared a lot of people out, and of course the influenza.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And did they destroy their civilization for an actually terrible pandemic?
Nope.
No.
Yeah. That they filmed it on like a quiet day at the end of the week or something. I don't know.
I like that. Bit of Victorian derelict there.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
right. Shall we switch to the other one, D? To the last video.
All right.
Because I'm sick of the video. I'm sick of the adverts.
Yeah. All right. So this would be labourers in Victorian England.
Yeah.
A bit of rough, as I like to say.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm a friend of the working man.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Right. Ready? 1, 2, play. Okay.
Hello, my name is Dennis.
Oh.
Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Amazing thing.
Well done, Dennis.
All right, Dennis.
As you can see, the source quality of the film is not good. It is wired for neural networks and is hard to dramatically improve the quality. However, it is still slow, and real time travel experience. Human.
So what do you think? Would you rather be one of these guys or rather be one of the council estate people in 1980?
This.
No question. No question.
I mean, you're going to have a family. You're going to have a sense of purpose in life. You're going to have a centralized religion. You have leaders that you can actually look up to. Why would you pick? There's a black guy. Why would you pick? Why would you pick that over this?
Also, Living Pictures passion play. I'm fascinated by that black guy. He was just powering around with his white mates there.
Well, the thing is that there's always been I think pretty much since like some point in the Tudor era, there was like a small black population in London. But I mean, it's like a few hundred. Like,
yeah, but we're led to believe that the mere appearance of that man, he would have been lynched by these terrible racists.
I mean, the other thing is that if it's just one black guy living in London, like, who cares? Like, of course he's going to just chum around with all the other blokes. Like, there's no real issue.
These people could have strolled out of basically
God.
any time in the 19th century. I mean, these look distinctively like 19th century people to me.
Was that guy black or because I did see various people with like soot on their faces? So
no, that one was that one was definitely a black.
He had
black,
the sort of tone.
I look at genuine urchins, more genuine urchins.
They've all got shoes though.
Yeah, the women with the shawls. That's
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? The shawl wearing.
As I said, these people would have been probably a bit more in the past than the kind of more well-to-do people who would have kept up with fashion a bit more.
Talking about the phrenology that we were talking about the other day, do you think that you can tell that these are like working class faces?
Oh yeah,
something distinctly working class about their faces.
Yeah, a lot of them, I would say. I've seen again just flashes of other sort of faces, but yeah, I mean, look at that kid there. I mean,
yeah, I mean these are not these are children that are not nourished particularly well, even though they're not starving.
Like that lad that was like posing there. But yeah, these people could have strolled out. These people could be from any time from like 1850 to 1900.
Look at how salty some of these characters are. Genuinely salty characters.
Strength to the face of the people of this era.
Beetle Bamford.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like one of these guys meeting someone like Alan Carr or like?
Why Alan Carr? Why?
I don't know. I just picked him out randomly. Or like, do you remember I played that All About the Bass video, like the dancing, like fat guy in that?
Well, there would be Alan Carrs exclusively in like some Soho, like upper middle class, den somewhere doing illicit acts. That's where they'd be.
I mean, these men literally with grime on their faces are still wearing jackets and ties and hats and.
I reckon that guy who just walked in with the beer would have been a hard character.
Oh yeah, he runs the local soup kitchen. He's a.
Can you imagine shaking hands with one of these guys? How soft your hands will be compared to theirs?
A very firm handshake these guys would give. I love how universal the waistcoat is as like a garment, because it like how practical is a waistcoat to like a label?
Some tash on that guy there. So sorry.
Fight. There's a fight.
Are they
I
fighting?
think they're stage fighting. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no! Actually, it could be. I don't know. Is it real? I think that was an actual fist fight we saw there.
Look, another urchin. I'm sure we've seen that urchin before.
All urchins look the same.
Time travel session will be over in 3, 2.
It's all over.
Oh, dear, that was amazing. I love this whole thing.
Yeah,
so good.
But and the distribution of again small boys, men. I mean, all different ages there in those environments, and they would have all been working.
I think it may actually be harmful to a civilization if all of the young men are spending all of the day in a classroom being schooled with women. I think that may actually do more harm than having them sort of be out with their fathers all day.
Absolutely, it's a feminizing enterprise. I think I talked about this a bit on UO.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of those kids clearly maybe didn't go to school. They were already working, right? Which is a completely different way of life. The other thing that we were looking at there is the complete lack of the teenager, a completely modern invention.
Yep.
So you notice there were men, there were boys, and there were young men, younger men, but they were still men, right? There's no like category of teenager in between.
No,
I find that very interesting.
no, there's no 20-year-old teenagers walking about.
Well, champs, we're just clocking in at 2 hours, but that was absolutely fascinating, wasn't it? We really enjoyed doing that. So, and hopefully, future people from Christmas Eve, you enjoyed this as well.
Before we go, just one dark thought that's occurred to me is that do you think that, I don't know, 50 years from now, maybe even less, people might look back at footage of the current year and go, God, even they didn't know how good they had it. God, it's got even worse now. Do you think that will be the case?
Well, I'll tell you something dark that I already find myself doing is when I see footage, even from last year, I say, look at all those people. There's no fucking social distancing. There's no masks. There's no sanitizer. There's no shields. There's no lines painted on the floor. There's no Tesco COVID marshals. I mean, I am looking. These are things from last year. I'm looking and saying, boy, that was a better time. So.
God.
I think things are going to get a lot darker before they get light again.
I have seen people look at like footage from like literally the 70s and the 80s, in the way that we were looking at the Victorian footage and the 20s and the 30s footage. So it's all a matter of perspective, I suppose. But yeah, I guess things can always get worse, eh? Get worse.
And as I said, I would rather go back to any of the eras that we looked at in this stream than continue. If the trajectory continues as it is, I would rather live in any of those times, even in the grimy world of Chinese takeaway and rubber panties of Soho in the 1970s. I'd rather be there than here. Quite an indictment, I'd say.
Well, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone. And a Happy New Year. Yes.
All right, get out.